The telegram machine clattered to life at 3 in the morning, jolting Theresa Kingston awake in the small room adjacent to the telegraph office. And she knew immediately that something terrible was about to happen. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and hurried to the desk, her fingers already moving to transcribe the urgent message clicking through from Denver. The year was 1878, and Leavenworth, Kansas had grown into a bustling railroad town, but the dangers of the frontier still lurked in every shadow. As the message became clear, her blood ran cold. A gang of thieves was working their way through the western telegraph stations, stealing payroll information and robbing trains before the money could be properly guarded. 3 operators had already been killed for refusing to cooperate. Theresa's hands trembled as she finished transcribing. She was only 22 years old, had been running this office alone since her father died 6 months ago, and now she possessed information that could get her murdered. The message warned that the Garrett gang was heading toward Kansas, targeting stations along the railroad line. She needed to alert the local marshal, but at this hour the streets were empty and dangerous. She had just begun encoding a response when she heard boots on the wooden walkway outside. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. More than one person. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she quickly folded the message and tucked it into her bodice. The door handle rattled, then someone pounded against the wood. Telegraph office. Open up. Theresa's mouth went dry. She recognized that voice from wanted posters. Jack Garrett himself. She backed away from the door, looking frantically for another exit. The building had a back door, but it led to an alley, and they probably had men stationed there too. "I know you are in there, miss. Received a message from Denver, did you not? We just need to have a little conversation about train schedules." The pounding grew more violent. The door was sturdy, but it would not hold forever. Theresa grabbed the fire poker from beside the small stove, knowing it was a pitiful defense against armed men. She thought of her father, of how he had taught her Morse code when she was just a girl, how he had trusted her to carry on his work. She could not let these criminals use her station to hurt innocent people. The door splintered. She screamed. Then gunfire erupted in the street, sharp and sudden. The pounding stopped. She heard shouting, the thunder of hooves, more shots. Then silence, stretching out until she thought her nerves would snap. "Madam," a different voice, deep and calm. "Madam, are you hurt? My name is Harrison Noble. I am not with those men." Theresa pressed herself against the wall, poker still raised. "How do I know that?" Fair question. There was a pause. "I am going to step back from the door. You can see me through the window if you look." Cautiously, she moved to the side window and peered out. Dawn was just beginning to lighten the sky, casting everything in gray shadows. A man stood in the street, hands raised, a rifle slung across his back. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the dusty clothes of someone who had been riding hard. His hat was pushed back, revealing dark hair and a face that was young but weathered by sun and wind. He looked maybe 25 or 26. "The marshal sent me," he called out. "Got word yesterday that the Garrett gang might be heading this way. I have been watching your office all night." "Where are they now?" "The men who were at my door ran off when I fired warning shots. They will be back, though, probably with more men. You need protection, and this office needs to be secured." Theresa's practical nature warred with her fear. She could not stay barricaded in here forever, and she did have messages to send. Slowly, she unbolted what remained of the door and opened it. The man lowered his hands and approached carefully, as if she were a spooked horse. In the growing light, she could see him more clearly. He had gray eyes that were steady and serious, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and an air of competence that made her want to trust him. But trust had gotten people killed on the frontier. "You said the marshal sent you?" "Yes, madam. Harrison Noble, out of Dodge City originally. I have been working as a scout and guard for the railroad. When word came through about the Garrett gang, Marshal Williams hired me to watch over the telegraph stations in this region. He gestured to the broken door. Looks like I got here just in time. They wanted information about train schedules, payroll shipments. His expression darkened. That is their game. They have been hitting trains all across Colorado and Nebraska, killed 2 guards in Sterling last month. He looked at the damaged door. We need to secure this place and get you somewhere safe. I cannot leave. Messages come through at all hours. People depend on this office. Then I will stay with you until we figure out a better plan. Theresa studied him, this stranger who had just inserted himself into her life. She had learned to be wary of men since her father died. Running a business alone had made her a target for all sorts of unwanted attention. From marriage proposals, she did not want to business partners trying to swindle her out of her inheritance. But Harrison Noble did not look at her the way those men did. His gaze was respectful, professional. Fine, she said. But you stay where I can see you, and that rifle stays unloaded in the corner. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Fair enough. They spent the next hour securing the office. Harrison nailed boards across the damaged door and checked all the windows. Theresa sent urgent messages to the surrounding stations and to the railroad headquarters in Kansas City, alerting them to the threat. Her fingers flew over the telegraph key, the familiar rhythm soothing her frayed nerves. Harrison watched her work with open curiosity. How long have you been doing this? My father taught me when I was 12. I have been running the office alone since February. That is a lot of responsibility. Someone has to do it. Communication is important, especially out here, he nodded, understanding in his eyes. I spent 2 years as a military telegraph operator during the Indian Wars. Before that, I was just a ranch hand. Learning Morse code probably saved my life, kept me off the front lines. Despite herself, Theresa felt a spark of kinship. Not many people understand how vital this work is. They just see the messages, not the connections being made. Oh, I understand. His voice was warm. Every message is a lifeline. News of births and deaths, business deals, warnings about danger. You are connecting people across hundreds of miles. That is powerful. Before she could respond, the telegraph clattered to life. She turned to transcribe, and her face paled as the message came through. The Garrett gang had just robbed a train 30 miles west of Leavenworth. They were definitely in the area. We need to tell the marshal, she said, standing quickly. I will go. You stay here and keep the door bolted. Absolutely not. If they come back while you are gone, I am trapped. We go together, or I send the message to the marshal's office through the telegraph. Harrison frowned but saw the logic. Can you reach the marshal's office from here? No, they do not have a receiving station. Budget cuts. She grabbed her coat. It is only 3 blocks. We go together. He did not like it, she could tell, but he agreed. They stepped out into the early morning streets of Leavenworth. The town was beginning to wake up, smoke rising from chimneys, the smell of bread baking somewhere nearby. It seemed impossible that danger lurked in such an ordinary scene. They walked quickly, Harrison keeping himself between Theresa and the side streets, his hand near his pistol. She was very aware of his presence, of how he moved with quiet confidence, always watching. When they reached the marshal's office, they found William Williams already there, sorting through wanted posters. Noble, the marshal greeted them. Miss Kingston, trouble, they explained about the night's events and the latest telegram. Marshal Williams was a grizzled veteran of frontier justice, probably in his 50s, with iron gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Garrett is getting bolder, he said grimly, coming right into town like that. He looked at Theresa. Miss Kingston, I am going to be direct. You are in danger. That office is isolated, and they know you have information they want. I would feel better if you closed up for a few weeks, went to stay with family somewhere safer. I have no family left, Marshal, and I cannot close the office. Too many people depend on it. Then we need another solution. Williams turned to Harrison. Noble, I am officially hiring you as a deputy. Your job is to protect Miss Kingston and that telegraph office. You stay there, round the clock if necessary. I will have my other deputies patrol the area, but you are point man on this. Harrison nodded. Understood. Theresa started to protest, but the marshal held up his hand. This is not negotiable, miss. 3 operators are already dead. I will not have a 4th in my town. Walking back to the office, Theresa felt a confusing mix of relief and resentment. She had been taking care of herself for months, and now suddenly she needed a protector. But she also was not foolish. The fear she had felt when Garrett pounded on her door was real. I appreciate your help, she said stiffly. But you wish you did not need it, Harrison finished. I understand. You have been independent, running your own business. Having someone forced on you feels like losing control. She glanced at him, surprised. Yes, exactly. For what it is worth, I do not see this as you being weak. I see it as the situation being dangerous. You would do the same for someone else if positions were reversed. That was true, and it made her feel slightly better. Where were you planning to sleep? I have a small room attached to the office, but it is barely big enough for me. I will bed down in the main office. I have slept in worse places. They settled into an uneasy routine. Harrison made a pallet near the stove, positioning himself between the door and Theresa's room. She tried to maintain her normal schedule, but everything felt different now. She was hyper-aware of his presence, of the way he moved quietly around the space, always alert. The first full day passed without incident. Messages came and went, ordinary business mostly. Theresa sent telegrams about cattle prices, received confirmation of train arrivals, forwarded a message from a woman in St. Louis to her sister in Denver. Harrison watched and learned, asking occasional questions about her work. You ever make mistakes? He asked late that afternoon. Mix up the dots and dashes. Rarely now. It is like a language. After a while you think in Morse code. You hear the rhythm, not individual clicks. Like speaking without translating in your head. Exactly. That night, as Theresa was preparing a simple dinner of beans and cornbread on the small stove, Harrison told her more about himself. He had grown up in Texas, the youngest of 4 brothers. His family had a small ranch that barely scraped by. When he was 18, he joined the Army, seeking adventure and regular pay. He learned telegraphy during his service and discovered he had a gift for it. After my enlistment ended, I worked for Wells Fargo for a while, then the railroad. I have moved around a lot, never really settled anywhere. Do you want to settle? Theresa asked, surprising herself with the personal question. He was quiet for a moment. Maybe. I always thought I wanted to keep moving, see more of the country, but lately I have been thinking it might be nice to have a place to call home. People who know you, who you can count on. Leavenworth is a good town for that. People are friendly, mostly honest. Is that why you stayed after your father died? You could have sold the office, moved somewhere easier. This is my home. My father built this business from nothing. Walking away would feel like abandoning him. She stirred the beans vigorously. Besides, I am good at this work. I should not have to give it up just because I am a woman alone. No, you should not, Harrison agreed, though I suspect some men in town have tried to convince you otherwise. You have no idea. She rolled her eyes. I've had 3 marriage proposals in 6 months, all from men who just happened to be interested in owning a telegraph office. One of them actually told me it was not proper for a woman to handle such important communications, that my delicate nature might cause me to make errors. Harrison laughed, a deep, genuine sound that made her smile despite herself. Anyone who thinks you are delicate has not been paying attention. She was not sure if that was a compliment, but it felt like one. The second night, trouble came again. Theresa woke to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up, heart pounding, and heard Harrison already moving in the main room. She grabbed her robe and hurried out. "Stay back," he commanded, positioning himself in front of her. Someone had thrown a rock through the side window. Attached to it was a note. Harrison retrieved it carefully. In crude handwriting, it read, "Give us the train schedules or the next thing through that window will be fire." "They are trying to scare you into cooperating," Harrison said, his voice hard. "It is working," Theresa admitted. Her hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself. "I cannot let them burn this building. It is everything I have." "They will not. I promise you, Theresa. They will not hurt you or this place." It was the first time he had used her given name, and somehow that small intimacy steadied her. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw absolute certainty in his face. This man, who had known her less than 2 days, was prepared to put himself between her and harm. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "The marshal is paying you, but this is more than a job. You could have stayed in the street that first night, just kept them away with warning shots. Instead, you have made yourself a target." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "I lost someone once, my brother. We were bringing cattle up from Texas and we got caught by rustlers outside of Abilene. Tom tried to negotiate with them and they shot him dead. I was not there. I was in town, drinking and playing cards. By the time I got back to camp, he was gone. That was not your fault. Maybe not. But I learned something that day. When you have the power to protect someone, to stand between them and danger, you do it. You do not wait. You do not assume someone else will handle it." He met her eyes. "I was not there for Tom. I am here for you." The raw honesty in his voice made her throat tight. She reached out almost without thinking and touched his arm. "Thank you." They stood that way for a moment, something shifting between them, a connection forming that went deeper than circumstance. Then Harrison cleared his throat and stepped back, returning to his professional demeanor. "We should board up that window. And tomorrow, I am going to talk to the marshal about setting up a trap." "A trap?" "The Garrett gang wants information. We give it to them. False information. Lead them to expect a payroll shipment on a train that will actually be full of armed deputies." Theresa considered this. "That could work. But it would mean me sending false telegrams. That goes against everything this office stands for. People trust the information I transmit. We would not send it through your office. We would stage it, make them think they are intercepting a real message. Let them think they have won." She nodded slowly. "All right, but we do it carefully. I will not compromise the integrity of this office." The next day, Harrison spent hours with Marshal Williams planning the trap. Theresa continued her work, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept replaying their conversation from the night before, the vulnerability she had seen in Harrison when he talked about his brother. He carried that loss with him, let it drive him to protect others. It was noble, but she worried about what it cost him. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, Harrison asked her about her own past. She found herself telling him about her mother, who had died of fever when Theresa was 15, and her father, who had poured his grief into building the Telegraph business. "He taught me everything," she said. "Not just the technical skills, but the ethics of the work. He said we were guardians of truth, that every message we transmitted had to be handled with respect and care. Some operators get sloppy, make mistakes because they are rushing. But Father said that behind every message is a human being waiting for information that might change their life. We owe them accuracy. He sounds like a good man. He was. I miss him every day. She smiled sadly. He would have liked you, I think. He always said the measure of a man was not how fast he could draw or how tough he talked, but whether he kept his word and stood by his principles. I try to, Harrison said simply. That evening, as Theresa was preparing dinner again, she realized how domestic this was beginning to feel. Harrison had found a small table and set it with the mismatched plates she owned. He had even picked some wildflowers from the empty lot next door and put them in a tin can as a centerpiece. You did not have to do all this, she said, touched by the gesture. Seemed only right. You have been cooking for both of us. Least I could do is make it feel less like eating out of a feed bag. They ate together, talking about small things, ordinary things. Harrison told her funny stories about his time in the army, about a sergeant who was terrified of chickens, and a major who could not read a map to save his life. She told him about some of the stranger messages she had transmitted over the years, including one from a man proposing marriage to a woman he had never met. She said yes. Theresa laughed. They are married now, living in Nebraska. She came through town once and stopped to thank me for transmitting the message that changed her life. You think about marriage? Harrison asked, then quickly added, I mean in general. You said you had proposals. Not those kinds of proposals. Those were business transactions disguised as romance. She hesitated, then decided to be honest. But yes, I think about it sometimes. I always imagined I would find someone who understood this work, who would not ask me to give it up. Someone who saw me as a partner, not property. That seems reasonable. What about you? Any women waiting for you in all those towns you have passed through? He shook his head. Never stayed anywhere long enough for that, and I guess I have not met someone who made me want to stop moving. He paused, his eyes on hers. Until recently. The air between them suddenly felt charged. Theresa's heart beat faster, and she could not look away from him. This was dangerous territory. She barely knew this man, regardless of how much time they had spent together in the last few days. And yet, she felt more comfortable with him than she had with people she had known for years. The moment broke when the telegraph clattered to life. Theresa jumped slightly, then moved to transcribe the message. It was from the railroad company, confirming schedules for the next week. Routine, but it reminded them both why Harrison was here. The trap was set for 3 days later. Marshal Williams had spread word, through carefully selected sources, that a large payroll shipment would be on the westbound train Thursday night. In reality, the train would carry 20 armed deputies and railroad agents, all waiting for the Garrett gang to make their move. Theresa's role was to be visible in the office, to maintain her normal routine so that anyone watching would not suspect anything unusual. Harrison stayed close, but the marshal had also stationed other deputies in nearby buildings, creating a net of protection around her. Wednesday night, the tension was unbearable. Theresa tried to work, but her hands shook every time she reached for the telegraph key. Harrison noticed and came to stand beside her chair. Talk to me, he said gently. Tell me something, anything. I am terrified, she admitted. What if something goes wrong? What if they realize it is a trap and come here first? Then I will be here. Theresa, look at me. She did, and his gray eyes were steady, certain. I will not let anything happen to you, I promise. You cannot promise that. Anything could happen. You are right. I cannot control everything, but I can promise that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And that if something does happen to me, there are a dozen men in position to protect you. The thought of something happening to him made her chest tighten painfully. You should not put yourself at risk like this. Too late. I am already here, already involved. Besides, he said, a small smile playing at his lips, I have a reason to make sure we both come through this just fine. What reason? I would like to take you to dinner. A real dinner in a real restaurant, not beans cooked on that little stove. And I cannot do that if we are both not alive and well. Despite her fear, Theresa laughed. That is your motivation, dinner, among other things. His voice was soft now, serious. I meant what I said earlier. I have never wanted to stop moving to settle down. But being here with you, I have started imagining what that could look like. If we can get through this, if the gang is caught and you are safe, I would like to explore that possibility. With you, her breath caught. Harrison, we have known each other less than a week. I know. And maybe I am crazy, but I have been around enough to know when something is right. This feels right. Theresa did not know what to say. Every practical bone in her body said this was too fast, too uncertain, but her heart was telling her something different. She had felt the connection between them, had found herself looking forward to their conversations, had noticed the way her spirits lifted when he smiled at her. If we get through this, she said carefully, then yes. I would like that dinner, and to see where this goes. His smile transformed his whole face, making him look younger, less burdened. Then we will get through this. Thursday morning dawned clear and cold. October in Kansas could be unpredictable, and there was a crispness in the air that hinted at the coming winter. Theresa went through her usual routine, sending and receiving messages, maintaining the rhythm of the office. Harrison stayed visible but not obvious, cleaning his rifle near the window, playing cards at the small table. Around noon, a man came into the office with a telegram to send. He was dusty from travel, with cold eyes that made Theresa's skin crawl. She took his message, a short inquiry about boarding house rates in Topeka, and transmitted it professionally. He watched her the entire time. "You run this place alone?" he asked. "I have help when I need it," she said carefully. His eyes flicked to Harrison. "Your husband, business associate." The man grunted and paid her, then left. As soon as he was gone, Theresa let out a breath she had been holding. "He was one of them," Harrison said, "scouting you out." "Should we tell the marshal?" "He already knows. That man has been followed since he rode into town this morning. Everything is going according to plan." The afternoon stretched endlessly. Theresa forced herself to keep working, to appear calm and normal. Harrison read from a newspaper someone had left behind, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand stayed near his pistol. The train was due at 7 that evening. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Marshal Williams appeared at the office. "Time to lock up," he said. "Miss Kingston, you are coming to stay at my house tonight. My wife is expecting you." "But what if they try to break in here? All my equipment will be fine. I have 2 men stationed inside, out of sight. Anyone who tries to get in will be arrested." The marshal's tone left no room for argument. "Let's go." Theresa gathered a few things while Harrison conferred with the marshal in low tones. Then they were walking through the darkening streets, moving quickly. Mrs. Williams was waiting at the door of the marshal's house, a kind-faced woman who immediately swept Theresa inside. "You will be safe here, dear. Come, I have tea on." Harrison started to leave with the marshal, but Theresa caught his arm. "Be careful." "Always am." He smiled at her, and she saw both confidence and concern in his eyes. "I will see you in a few hours. We will have quite a story to tell over that dinner." Then he was gone, and she was left with nothing to do but wait. Mrs. Williams tried to distract her with conversation, but Theresa could barely focus. She kept thinking about Harrison out there in the darkness, about the gang members who had killed without hesitation. What if the trap failed? What if someone got hurt? The hours crawled by. 8 o'clock came and went. 9, 10. Mrs. Williams dozed in her chair, but Theresa was wide awake, every nerve on edge. At nearly 11, she heard horses outside, then voices. The door opened and Marshal Williams walked in, looking exhausted but satisfied. "It is done," he said. "We got them." "All of them." Theresa stood so quickly she nearly knocked over her chair. "Harrison is fine. He is giving his statement to my deputies. Should be along shortly." Relief flooded through her so powerfully she had to sit back down. "What happened?" the marshal explained. The gang had taken the bait, stopping the train about 5 miles outside of town. When they boarded, expecting a safe full of payroll money, they found themselves surrounded by armed lawmen instead. There had been a brief shootout, but it was over quickly. 3 gang members were wounded but alive. Jack Garrett himself had been captured without a fight, seeing the hopelessness of the situation. "None of my men were seriously hurt," Williams finished. "A few scrapes and bruises. But we broke the Garrett gang tonight. They will all hang or spend the rest of their lives in prison." Theresa felt tears prick her eyes. It was over. The threat that had hung over her for days was gone. She was safe. Harrison was safe. It was nearly midnight when Harrison finally arrived at the marshal's house. He looked tired and dirty, with a bruise forming on his jaw, but he was grinning. When he saw Theresa, his expression softened. "Told you we would get through it," he said. She wanted to run to him, to throw her arms around him, but Mrs. Williams and the marshal were watching. Instead, she just smiled, hoping he could see everything she felt in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "For everything, my pleasure." He turned to the marshal. "Am I needed for anything else tonight?" "No, you have done more than enough. Get some rest. Both of you." Harrison insisted on walking Theresa back to the Telegraph office, despite her protests that it was now safe. As they moved through the quiet streets, she realized she did not want to say goodnight. The past few days, with all their fear and tension, had also been full of something else. Connection. Understanding. The beginning of something important. At the office door, Harrison paused. "I suppose this is the end of my employment as your protector." "I suppose so." Theresa looked up at him. "Though I hope it is not the end of everything else." "No," he said softly. "Not if you do not want it to be." "I do not want it to be." He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Tomorrow night, that dinner, are you still willing?" "Yes." "Good." He hesitated, then bent and kissed her forehead, a gentle touch that made her heart race. "Sleep well, Theresa. I will see you tomorrow." She watched him walk away, touching the spot where his lips had been. Everything had changed. A week ago, she had been alone, running her business, keeping everyone at arm's length. Now she was standing in the doorway, smiling like a fool, already anticipating seeing Harrison again. The next morning, Leavenworth was buzzing with news of the capture. People stopped by the Telegraph office all day, wanting to hear details, congratulating Theresa on her narrow escape. She transmitted the story to surrounding towns and to the railroad headquarters, becoming part of the very communication network she operated. Harrison came by around noon, looking much better after a night's rest and a shave. He had changed into clean clothes and looked almost nervous. "Still interested in that dinner?" he asked. "Very much so." They went to the best restaurant in town, a place called Donahue's that served proper steaks and had real tablecloths. It was the fanciest meal Theresa had eaten in months, maybe years. But what made it special was not the food but the company. Without the immediate danger hanging over them, they could just talk, learning more about each other. Harrison told her about his dreams for the future. He had saved money from his various jobs and was thinking about buying land, maybe starting a small ranch. Nothing huge, just enough to feel like he had something of his own. "I would still want to do security work sometimes," he said. I am good at it and it pays well. But having a home base would be nice, somewhere to come back to. That sounds wonderful, Theresa said. Would you stay in this area? I was thinking about it. Leavenworth is growing, has a good railroad connection, seems like a place with a future. He looked at her meaningfully. And it has other attractions. She felt her cheeks warm. Harrison Noble, are you flirting with me? Absolutely. Is it working? Maybe. They laughed together, and Theresa marveled at how easy this was. She had been on a few awkward dinners with men who were clearly just interested in her business. But with Harrison, she felt like he saw her, the real her. He asked intelligent questions about her work, listened to her opinions, treated her as an equal. After dinner, they walked along the river that ran through town. It was a beautiful evening, the sky clear and full of stars. Harrison offered her his arm and she took it, enjoying the solid warmth of him beside her. I have been thinking, he said, about what comes next. The marshal offered me a permanent position as a deputy. The pay is decent and it would give me a reason to stay in Leavenworth. Theresa's heart leaped. Are you going to take it? That depends. On what? He stopped walking and turned to face her. On whether you want me to stay. I know we have not known each other long. I know this is all moving fast. But Theresa, I have never felt this way about anyone. When I am with you, I feel like I have found something I did not even know I was looking for. If you want me to stay, to see where this goes, I will take the deputy job and make Leavenworth my home. But if you would rather I move on, I will understand. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. This strong, capable man was giving her the power to shape his future. It was overwhelming and wonderful and terrifying all at once. I want you to stay, she said. I feel the same way, Harrison. This past week has been frightening, but it has also shown me something. I have been so focused on proving I could manage alone that I forgot how good it could feel to have a partner, someone who supports you without trying to control you. I would very much like you to stay. His smile was radiant. Then I am staying. He leaned down and kissed her, a real kiss this time, and Theresa felt like every telegraph wire in the world was suddenly humming with connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she laughed with pure joy. What? Harrison asked, smiling. I am just happy. Happier than I have been in a very long time. Me too. They walked back to the telegraph office slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. At her door, Harrison kissed her again, then reluctantly said good night. I will see you tomorrow, he promised. I am counting on it. The next few weeks fell into a new pattern. Harrison took the deputy position and found a room at a boarding house 2 streets over from the telegraph office. But he spent most of his time at Theresa's office, helping her with repairs, keeping her company during long shifts, and learning more about her work. They became a familiar sight around Leavenworth, the telegraph operator and her cowboy deputy. People smiled when they saw them together, and more than a few townspeople remarked that it was nice to see Miss Kingston happy again. Theresa had not realized how lonely she had been until she was not lonely anymore. Harrison fit into her life seamlessly. He understood when she needed to focus on work and did not get offended. He brought her lunch when she was too busy to stop. He made her laugh with his stories and listened intently when she talked about her dreams. One evening in late November, as they sat together in the telegraph office after hours, Theresa was trying to explain the finer points of telegraph operation to Harrison. So the key is the rhythm, she said. You have to develop a feel for it. Every operator has a slightly different touch, like handwriting. Experienced operators can recognize who is sending just by the sound. Harrison tried tapping out a message, tongue between his teeth in concentration. How is that? Not bad. A little slow, but you are getting it. Can you understand what I am saying? She laughed. No, you are just making random clicks. It has to be actual Morse code. Teach me to say something, something specific. All right. What do you want to say? He thought for a moment. How about you are beautiful? Her breath caught. He said things like that sometimes, casual compliments that still made her heart flutter. That would be too complicated for your first message. Try something simpler. What is simple? She considered. How about just hello? That is boring. Well, what about your name? That is useful to know. They spent the next hour with her teaching him to tap out his name in Morse code. He was a quick learner, picking up the patterns after just a few repetitions. She found herself enjoying the teaching, the way his face lit up when he got it right. This is harder than it looks, he admitted. Most worthwhile things are. She covered his hand with hers on the telegraph key. But you are doing well. He turned his hand to lace his fingers with hers. I have a good teacher. They sat that way for a moment, hands intertwined, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then Harrison spoke, his voice serious. Theresa, I need to tell you something. I am falling in love with you. No, that is not right. I have already fallen, completely. And I know it has only been a couple of months, and maybe that is not enough time, but I have never been more sure of anything. Tears pricked her eyes, happy tears this time. Harrison, I love you too. I think I have since that first night when you promised to protect me, and I could see you meant it. You have this way of making me feel safe and strong at the same time, like I can handle anything as long as you are beside me. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and she felt it all the way to her toes. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said. I know this is sudden, but I do not see any point in waiting. I want to spend my life with you, Theresa. I want to support your work, to be your partner in everything. I want to build a future together. She pulled back to look at him, searching his face. She saw only love and certainty. This man who had walked into her life just 2 months ago had become essential to her. The thought of him leaving, of going back to being alone, was unbearable. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. His whoop of joy made her laugh. He picked her up and spun her around the small office, both of them grinning like children. When he set her down, he kissed her again. I do not have a ring yet, he said, but I will get you one, the best one I can afford. I do not need anything fancy, just you. You are getting both. They were married on a cold December morning just before Christmas. The ceremony was small, held in the local church with Marshall and Mrs. Williams as witnesses. Theresa wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved all these years, and Harrison wore a new suit that made him look both handsome and slightly uncomfortable. As they exchanged vows, Theresa thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. 2 months ago, she had been alone and frightened, wondering if she would survive the night. Now she was marrying the man who had saved her, who had shown her what real partnership could look like. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Harrison kissed her gently, mindful of the public setting. But his eyes promised more for later, and she felt her cheeks warm. They had a small reception at the hotel, with cake and champagne and well wishes from the townspeople. Many came to congratulate them, genuinely happy to see Theresa happy. She had not realized how many people cared about her until that moment. As the afternoon faded into evening, Harrison leaned close and whispered, "Ready to go home, Mrs. Noble?" She liked the sound of that. Very ready. They had decided to live in the expanded quarters attached to the telegraph office. Harrison had spent the past few weeks renovating, knocking down a wall to create a proper bedroom and improving the small kitchen. It was not grand, but it was theirs. That night, as they lay together in their new bed, Theresa traced the line of his jaw with her finger. "Harrison, can I tell you something? Anything? Remember when I was teaching you Morse code, you asked me to teach you to say something specific. I remember. Well, I was thinking. You protected me, saved my life, and in doing so, you opened up this whole new future for me. You connected me to a life I did not even know I wanted." He smiled. "I like to think we connected each other." "We did." She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "You connected straight to my heart, Harrison Noble, from that very first night." His eyes shone with emotion. "That is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. It is the truth." He kissed her, tender and loving, and they spent their first night as husband and wife wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had found their perfect match against all odds. The winter passed in a haze of happiness. Theresa continued to run the Telegraph office, and Harrison worked as a deputy while also taking on security contracts for the railroad. They made a good team, supporting each other's work, building a life together. In February, Theresa began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited another few weeks to be sure before telling Harrison. When she finally did, on a sunny afternoon in early March, his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. "Are you certain?" he asked, his hand going protectively to her still flat stomach. "As certain as I can be." "I think the baby will come in October." "October. That is perfect. The weather will be cooling down by then." He was babbling, clearly overwhelmed. "We will need to prepare. A cradle, baby clothes, we should talk to the doctor." She laughed and kissed him. "We have time. 7 months. But yes, we should start preparing." He pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as if she might break. "I am going to be a father. We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" "Happy does not begin to cover it. Theresa, you have given me everything. A home, a purpose, love, and now a family. I never dreamed I could have all this." "Neither did I, but we built it together." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Theresa continued working, though Harrison became increasingly protective as her belly grew. He worried constantly, fussing over her in ways that were both endearing and occasionally annoying. "Harrison, I am just walking to the post office," she said one day in July, exasperated. "You do not need to accompany me. It is hot out. You should not be exerting yourself." "I am pregnant, not an invalid. Women have been doing this since the beginning of time." "Not my woman and my child." She softened at that. "I appreciate your concern, but I need to maintain some normalcy. I will go crazy if you wrap me in cotton wool for 3 more months." He sighed. "You are right. I am being overbearing. It is just that I worry, I know. But I am healthy and the doctor says everything is progressing normally. Trust me to know my limits." "I do trust you. I will try to worry less." "Just try to worry more quietly," she teased. As summer turned to fall, they prepared the small nursery they had created by partitioning off part of their bedroom. Harrison built a beautiful cradle from oak, sanding it until it was perfectly smooth. Mrs. Williams and other women from town hosted a baby shower, gifting Theresa with tiny clothes, blankets, and advice both helpful and overwhelming. On a crisp October morning, just after sunrise, Theresa's water broke. Harrison went pale when she told him, then snapped into action, running for the doctor and Mrs. Williams. Within an hour, their home was full of purposeful activity. The labor was long and difficult. Theresa had known intellectually that childbirth was painful, but the reality was almost overwhelming. She gripped Harrison's hand through the contractions, grateful for his steady presence even as she cursed him for getting her into this situation. "You are doing beautifully," he kept saying. "So strong. I am amazed by you." Finally, as the sun was setting, painting their bedroom in golden light, their son was born, a healthy, squalling baby with dark hair and his father's gray eyes. Harrison cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," he whispered. "Theresa, he is perfect." She held their son for the first time and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. This tiny person, created from their love, was the most precious thing she had ever held. "What should we name him?" Harrison asked. They had discussed names but never settled on anything. Now, looking at her son, Theresa knew. "Thomas," she said. "After your brother, Thomas Noble." Harrison's face crumpled. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. Your brother would have loved to meet him. This way his name lives on." "Thank you," Harrison managed through his tears. "Thank you for giving me this." Little Thomas was a good baby, healthy and alert. He nursed well and slept in stretches long enough to keep Theresa from complete exhaustion. Harrison was a devoted father, getting up for nighttime feedings, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor when Thomas was fussy. "You are a natural at this," Theresa observed one night, watching Harrison gently rock their son. "I just want to do right by him. Give him the childhood I wish I had." What kind of childhood was that? One where he knows he is loved, where he has stability and support. "My parents were good people, but we were always struggling, always worried about money. I want Thomas to grow up feeling secure." "He will. We will make sure of it." As Thomas grew from infant to baby to toddler, their lives found a new rhythm. Theresa continued running the telegraph office, now with Thomas playing at her feet. She rigged up a small playpen near her desk where he could entertain himself while she worked. The locals loved him, stopping by to say hello and bringing small gifts. Harrison balanced his work as a deputy with his duties as a father, always making time for his family. He taught Thomas to ride before the boy could properly walk, setting him on a gentle mare and leading her around the yard. Years passed in a blur of happiness and challenges. They weathered economic downturns and harsh winters, a bout of influenza that nearly took Thomas when he was 3, and the normal struggles of raising a child. But through it all, their love remained strong, a foundation that held steady no matter what storms came. When Thomas was 5, Theresa became pregnant again. This time, she was less anxious and more confident, knowing what to expect. Their daughter, Emma, was born on a spring morning, and Thomas was fascinated by his new sister. "She is so small," he kept saying, gently touching her tiny fingers. "You were that small once," Harrison told him. "I was not. You were. And just like we took care of you, we will take care of Emma. And you can help." Thomas took his big brother duties very seriously, always wanting to help feed Emma or fetch her blankets. It warmed Theresa's heart to see him so gentle with his sister. As the children grew, Harrison made good on his dream of buying land. He purchased a small ranch just outside of town, enough acres for cattle and horses. He continued his deputy work, but spent more time building up the ranch, creating something permanent for their family. Theresa eventually trained an assistant to help with the telegraph office, a young man named Peter who was quick and reliable. This gave her more freedom to spend time with the children and help Harrison with the ranch. One evening, when Thomas was 10 and Emma was 5, they all sat together on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sunset paint the Kansas sky in brilliant colors. Thomas was showing Emma how to whistle using a blade of grass, and Harrison had his arm around Theresa's shoulders. "Do you ever think about that night?" Harrison asked quietly. "When we first met, sometimes. It feels like a lifetime ago and like yesterday all at once." "I was terrified," he admitted. "When I heard them pounding on your door, I thought I might be too late. But you were not. You saved me, Harrison, in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other." He kissed her temple. "You gave me a reason to stop running, to build a life. I would have kept drifting forever if I had not met you. I would have stayed safe and lonely, never letting anyone close. We were both lost until we found each other." Thomas called out to them, wanting to show off his whistling skills. They turned their attention to their children, to this beautiful life they had built together. Later, after the children were in bed, Theresa and Harrison lay together under the stars on their porch. "You remember what I said on our wedding night?" Theresa asked. "About you connecting straight to my heart." "I remember every word. I still feel that way. Every single day you connect straight to my heart, Harrison Noble." He pulled her closer. "And you are the most important message I ever received, the one that changed everything." They fell asleep there under the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the life they had built from danger and chance meetings. The telegraph office in town still clattered with messages, connecting people across vast distances. But the most important connection had already been made years ago, when a cowboy protected a telegraph operator and found his home in her heart. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Thomas grew into a thoughtful young man who loved both the technical precision of the telegraph and the physical work of the ranch. Emma was wild and free, more comfortable on horseback than in a dress, with her father's determination and her mother's quick mind. When Theresa was 40, they received news that the telegraph company wanted to buy her office to incorporate it into their larger network. It was a good offer, one that would give them financial security for life. She and Harrison discussed it at length. "It has been your father's legacy," Harrison said. "I will support whatever you decide. It has been my legacy too, but Emma has no interest in telegraphy, and Thomas wants to work with the railroad as an engineer, not an operator. Maybe it is time to let it go to start a new chapter." "Are you sure?" She thought about the young woman she had been, terrified and alone in that office. She thought about all the messages she had sent, all the people she had helped connect. And she thought about the most important connection of all, the one that had brought Harrison into her life. "I am sure. Some things are meant to last forever. Others serve their purpose and can be released with gratitude." They sold the office but kept the building, converting it into a small home that they rented to a young family just starting out. Thomas went off to study engineering in Chicago, writing long letters home about his classes and the city. Emma stayed local, eventually marrying a rancher's son and settling on land adjacent to theirs. Harrison retired from deputy work when he turned 50, focusing full-time on the ranch. Theresa helped him, enjoying the physical work after so many years at a desk. They were not rich, but they were comfortable, with a home they loved and children who made them proud. One autumn evening, when they were both in their 60s, Theresa and Harrison sat together on their porch swing, watching the sun set over their land. They did this most evenings now, treasuring the quiet moments together. "We have had a good life," Harrison said. "The best life," Theresa agreed. She took his hand, noticing how it had aged, the skin rougher now, marked by decades of work. But it was still the same hand that had held hers through danger and joy, through births and losses, through every moment that mattered. "You have any regrets?" he asked. She considered the question seriously. "No, not a single one. Everything we did, every choice we made led us here, and here is exactly where I want to be. Even that first night when your life was in danger, especially that first night, because it brought you to me. Harrison, you were the greatest adventure of my life. Everything else was just preparation." He kissed her soft and sweet, a kiss that held decades of love and commitment. "You still connect straight to my heart," he murmured. "Every day, every moment. And you to mine." They sat together as the stars came out, talking about their children and grandchildren, about memories and dreams, about all the ordinary and extraordinary moments that had made up their life together. The wind carried the scent of prairie grass and cattle, familiar and comforting. Thomas came to visit with his wife and 3 children the next month. Emma rode over almost daily with her brood of 4. The ranch house that had once seemed spacious was now bursting with children's laughter and energy. Harrison taught his grandchildren to ride, just as he had taught his own children. Theresa told them stories about the telegraph office, about the messages that had connected the country during its wildest days. One of Emma's daughters, a bright girl named Sarah, was particularly fascinated. "Grandmother, did you really send messages all across the country?" "I did. Every click of the key connected to someone far away. It was like magic, but real." "Can you teach me?" Theresa smiled. She had thought that part of her life was finished, but perhaps it was not. "I can teach you, if your parents agree." Sarah became a regular visitor, learning Morse code with the same enthusiasm Theresa had brought to it as a girl. It made Theresa happy to pass on that knowledge, to know that something of that legacy would continue. When Theresa was 70, she fell ill with pneumonia. The doctor was worried, given her age, but she was tougher than she looked. Harrison never left her side, sleeping in a chair by her bed, making sure she took her medicine and ate even when she did not want to. "You have to get better," he told her. "We still have years left together." "I am trying," she whispered, her hand in his. "I am not ready to leave you yet. Good, because I am not ready to let you go." She recovered slowly, and by spring she was back on her feet, though a little weaker than before. But she was alive, and that was what mattered. They celebrated her recovery with a family gathering, all their children and grandchildren crowding into the ranch house. As Theresa looked around at the faces of the people she loved, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This life, this family, had all come from a moment of danger and a cowboy's decision to protect a stranger. Everything good had flowed from that connection. Years continued their steady march. Harrison's hair went completely white, and he moved a little slower, but his eyes still lit up when he looked at Theresa. She had lines on her face now, earned from years of laughter and worry, and her hands were no longer as steady. But she still felt young when Harrison smiled at her. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a party that seemed to include half of Leavenworth. People told stories about the early days, about the capture of the Garrett gang, about how everyone in town had known Harrison and Theresa were meant for each other from the start. "We were the last to know," Theresa joked. "No," Harrison corrected. "I knew immediately. It just took me a few days to convince you. Only because you saved my life. I would do it again. Every day for the rest of eternity I would choose you." The party continued late into the night, with music and dancing and joy. Thomas and Emma both gave speeches, talking about what wonderful parents they had, how their love had created a foundation of security and happiness. There was not a dry eye in the room. When everyone had finally gone home, Harrison and Theresa sat together in their kitchen, exhausted but happy. 50 years, Theresa marveled. It has gone so fast, and so slow. I remember every moment. Harrison took her hand. "You are still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." "You are blind, old man." "Maybe, but I see you clearly. I see the brave woman who refused to abandon her post even when her life was in danger. I see the patient teacher who shared her knowledge. I see the loving mother who raised our children with wisdom and grace. I see my partner, my love, my everything." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "And I see the man who gave me a life I never dreamed possible, who protected me, loved me, built a future with me. You are my heart, Harrison Noble. You always have been." They went to bed that night holding hands, just as they had on their wedding night, just as they had every night for 50 years. Harrison passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 years later, at the age of 79. He had spent his last day doing what he loved, working with his grandson on fixing a fence line, eating dinner with his family, and sitting on the porch with Theresa watching the sunset. "It was a good day," he had said before bed. A perfect day. They have all been perfect days, Theresa replied, because I spent them with you. Those were the last words they exchanged. In the morning he was gone, and Theresa's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The funeral was enormous, attended by people from all over Kansas. Harrison had touched many lives during his time as a deputy and rancher. But mostly, people came to support Theresa, to show their love for the couple who had been a fixture in Leavenworth for over 50 years. Thomas and Emma stayed close, worried about their mother. But Theresa assured them she would be fine. "I am heartbroken," she told them, "but I am also so grateful. I had 52 years with the love of my life. Many people never find that kind of love at all. I was blessed beyond measure." She continued living on the ranch, refusing to move in with her children. This was her home, filled with memories of Harrison, and she was not ready to leave it. Every evening she sat on the porch swing, talking to him as if he were still there. "You would not believe what Emma's youngest did today," she would say. Or, "Thomas is talking about running for mayor. I think he would be good at it." She felt Harrison's presence in everything around her. In the wind that rustled through the trees he had planted, in the cattle that bore the brand he had designed, in the grandchildren who had his gray eyes. Theresa lived for 3 more years after Harrison's death. She remained sharp and engaged, teaching Sarah everything she knew about telegraphy, spending time with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, helping Emma run the ranch. One evening in early fall, as the sun was setting over the Kansas prairie, Theresa felt a familiar presence beside her on the porch swing. She smiled, knowing it was time. "I have missed you," she said quietly, "but I am ready now, ready to join you." That night, Theresa Kingston Noble died peacefully in her sleep, at the age of 80. Her family mourned but took comfort in knowing she was reunited with the man she had loved for more than half a century. They buried her next to Harrison on a hill overlooking their ranch. The headstone read, "Connected in life, united in death, together forever." At the funeral, Sarah read a letter that Theresa had left for the family. In it, she told the story of that first night when Harrison had saved her life, of how a moment of danger had led to a lifetime of love. She talked about the importance of connection, not just through telegraph wires but through human hearts. "Love is the ultimate connection," she had written. "It transcends distance and time. Your grandfather connected straight to my heart that first night, and that connection never weakened, never failed. It is still there even now. Find that connection in your own lives. Hold on to it, treasure it, because that is what makes life worth living." The family gathered at the ranch house after the funeral, sharing memories and stories. Emma showed the younger generation the old telegraph key that Theresa had saved from the office, demonstrating how it worked. "Your great-grandmother was remarkable," she told them. "She was strong and brave and smart, and she loved your great-grandfather with everything she had. That love created all of this, our family, this ranch, everything we treasure. We are all here because a cowboy protected a telegraph operator and they fell in love." Thomas added his own memories, talking about how his parents had been partners in every sense of the word. "They worked together, raised us together, built their life together. They disagreed sometimes, sure, but they always respected each other. That is the example they set for us." As the sun set that evening, the family stood on the hill by the graves, looking out over the land that Harrison and Theresa had built together. Sarah held the old telegraph key, thinking about the messages it had sent, the connections it had made. And if you listened very carefully, you might have heard the faint clicking of Morse code on the wind, sending one final message: love endures. Love connects. Love conquers all. The ranch continued to thrive, passed down through the generations. Thomas's children eventually took it over, maintaining it as a working ranch, but also preserving the history. The old telegraph office in town became a museum, with exhibits about Theresa Kingston and the role of telegraph operators in settling the West. Sarah became a historian, specializing in communication technology of the 19th century. She wrote a book about her great-grandmother, about the vital role women played in connecting the Western territories. It became a bestseller, introducing new generations to Theresa's story. And always at the heart of every telling was the love story. The cowboy and the telegraph operator, brought together by danger, united by love, creating a legacy that lasted far beyond their years. Because that is the thing about true love, it does not end when life does. It ripples outward, touching everyone it reaches, connecting hearts across time and space. Just like those telegraph wires that once spanned the Wild West, connecting isolated outposts to the wider world, Harrison and Theresa's love connected their family to something greater. On the anniversary of Theresa's death, Sarah made a pilgrimage to the ranch as she did every year. She sat on the old porch swing, looking out over the land her great-grandparents had loved. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for loving each other so well. Thank you for building something that lasted. Thank you for showing us what connection really means." The wind carried her words out over the prairie, over the land that had witnessed so much history, so much life. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when their earthly journey is done, Harrison and Theresa smiled, their hands still clasped together, their hearts still beating as one. They had lived a full life, a good life, a life marked by courage and love and connection. They had raised children, built a business, created a home. But more than any of those accomplishments, they had loved each other truly and completely, right up until the very end and beyond. That was their legacy. Not the ranch or the telegraph office or even their children, precious as all those things were. Their true legacy was the example they set, the love they shared, the connection that could not be broken by time or distance or even death. Because when someone connects straight to your heart, they stay there forever. And that is the greatest message of all.